So, what is thinking? I mean, really, is it just a kind of mechanical process, a logical system that we build in our heads? Or could it be something more, something like a journey? Today, we're going to try and uncover the true nature of thought by following a path that was laid out for us by three incredible minds: a poet, a philosopher, and a mathematician. So, let's start our journey.
Our main idea, our central metaphor for this whole exploration, comes from the poet Dante Alighieri. You see, his Divine Comedy isn't just some old story. It's a map of the soul's journey upward. And this is the perfect way to think about our core idea, that thinking isn't just about processing data. It's a journey of transformation. It's the climb from being confused to finally reaching clarity.
All right, so if thinking is a journey, where do we start? Well, our first stop is way back with the ancient Greek philosopher Aristotle. He was one of the first to try and give us a map of reason itself. But as we're about to see, it's a very specific kind of map, a static one. Okay, this is Aristotle's famous square of opposition. Now, it might look a little intense, but the idea is actually pretty straightforward. He organized statements into four types. You've got universal statements, which apply to all of something, like all dogs are mammals. And then you have particular ones, which just apply to some, like some dogs are friendly. Then you can make them either affirmative, saying something is, or negative, saying something is not. It's a really brilliant tool for showing the fixed logical relationships between different claims and just checking if your arguments hold water. But, and this is the absolute key, Aristotle's square is all about static relationships. It tells you that if the statement all S are P is true, then the statement some S are not P has to be false. It's like a perfect, unchanging map of logical territory. But what it doesn't do is show you how to travel through that territory. It doesn't describe how our own understanding actually grows or changes or evolves. And this sets up a really fascinating contrast, right? On one side, you have Aristotle's logic, this fixed relational map. And on the other, you've got Dante's journey, a dynamic, transformational story of evolution. So which one do you think better represents what it actually feels like to think, to learn something new, to have one of those aha moments? Is thinking just about checking boxes on a map, or is it really about the climb itself?
And that question leads us right into our second model, the path of transformation. This is where we're going to leave that static map behind for a bit and actually follow Dante on his journey, using it as a guide for how our own minds can move from a state of ignorance to one of genuine understanding.
Now, the engine that powers this kind of journey has a special name: sublation. It's a deep concept, but the idea is pretty intuitive. It means that when you find out an idea is wrong, you don't just throw it in the trash. You overcome its limits, but you also preserve what was true about it, and you lift your understanding up to a higher, more complete level. Think about it. When Einstein came along, we didn't just forget about Newton's physics. No, we realized its limitations and elevated our understanding to include both. It's growth, not just simple replacement. And you can actually see this process of sublation play out across the four stages of Dante's journey. It starts in the Inferno, right, where you're just lost in your own illusions and contradictions. Then comes Purgatorio. That's the hard part, the struggle, the climb, where you're actively trying to shed those illusions. After that is Paradiso, where you finally start to see things clearly and comprehension really begins. And at the very top, there's the Empyrean, a state of total unified vision. This isn't just poetry, you guys. It's a blueprint for how we learn. Now, you might be thinking, okay, this is all very philosophical, very poetic, but what's truly mind-blowing is that this ancient idea, this journey towards a truth that is already whole and complete, finds an unbelievable echo in, of all places, 20th century mathematics. And this is where the plot twist hits. For like centuries, mathematicians had this huge dream of creating a perfect, complete system of logic, kind of like the ultimate Aristotelian map for literally all knowledge. But a critical question started to bubble up. If you try to build that system, are you on a journey to the highest truth? Or are you just getting hopelessly lost in the woods, just like Dante at the start of his poem? The answer came from this man, Kurt Gödel, and his incompleteness theorems were an absolute bombshell. He proved, with mathematical certainty, that any formal system, any logical map, if it's powerful enough to do basic arithmetic, will always contain statements that are true, but that you can never ever prove within that system. And the takeaway from this is, it's so simple, but it's so profound. Truth is bigger than proof. Any map we try to create, any perfect system we try to build, will never ever be able to contain the entire territory of what is true. This just shattered the worlds of logic and mathematics, but it was also a deeply philosophical insight.
And what's really wild is that what Gödel discovered wasn't actually a brand new idea. It echoes something the ancient Greek philosopher Parmenides said thousands of years earlier, that true thinking has to be in alignment with reality, with being itself, which is already whole, complete, and can't be divided. So any system that tries to chop it up into little provable pieces is guaranteed to miss the bigger picture.
So, after this incredible trip through logic, poetry, and math, what's the grand takeaway? Let's try to pull all these threads together, from Dante's climb, Aristotle's map, and Gödel's shocking discovery, and see if we can form one powerful conclusion about what it really means to think.
Okay, here's the moral of our story. We've learned that proof, well, it's an amazing tool for exploring, but it's not the end of the line. It's not the final measure of truth. The goal of thinking isn't to construct some perfect, closed-off system, because our systems will always be incomplete. But reality, truth itself, is already whole. And that means the real work of thinking isn't about building truth from the ground up, but about learning to recognize and align ourselves with the truth that's already out there.
And this, right here, is what reveals Gödel's true genius. See, he didn't prove that truth is flawed or broken. He did the exact opposite. His whole argument only works if you start by assuming that truth itself is already complete and whole. He used that fundamental reality as a baseline to reveal why any formal system we invent will always fall short. Which leaves us with this one last powerful thought. Maybe thinking isn't an act of invention. Maybe it's an act of recognition. When you think about the big things, love, beauty, justice, the nature of reality, these aren't things we just build with logic. They are truths we encounter, truths we journey towards, truths we finally recognize as having been there all along. So the real question isn't what can you prove? It's what are you recognizing?